The text message from my father arrived like a punch to the gut. "You're not welcome at your mother's funeral. Don't show up." I stared at my phone screen in my corner office at Memorial Hospital, where I'd spent the last 3 years as chief of oncology. The same hospital where my mother had received her cancer treatment. The same hospital where, just yesterday, she had taken her last breath while I watched from behind the nurse's station, unable to go into her room because of my father's orders. "Dr. Wilson?" My assistant knocked softly. "The board meeting about the new cancer research funding starts in 5 minutes. I nodded, trying to compose myself. "Thank you, Janet." "And the payment for patient Margaret Wilson's treatment. Processed anonymously as requested. $180,000 transferred from your personal account through the hospital's charitable foundation. Your father won't be able to trace it back to you." 3 years. For 3 years, I'd been secretly paying for my mother's expensive experimental treatments. 3 years of watching from a distance as she fought the disease that was slowly taking her away. 3 years of my father's bitter rejection, all because I had chosen medicine over the family construction business. "You're choosing strangers over family," he had shouted the day I announced I was going to medical school instead of taking over Wilson Construction. "If you walk away from this business, you walk away from this family." I had walked away. Not from family, never from family, but from the suffocating expectations that had been placed on me since birth. The blueprints and contracts that were supposed to be my destiny held no appeal compared to the chance to save lives. My father had made good on his threat. He blocked my calls, returned my letters, and told relatives I had abandoned the family. My mother, though, she would secretly meet me for coffee when he was at work, tell me how proud she was of my medical career, show me pictures of my new office on her phone. Until the diagnosis came. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer. When I saw her name on the admission records, my heart nearly stopped. I rushed to her room only to find my father standing guard. "Get out," he had snarled. "You're not her doctor. You're not her daughter. You're nothing." I left the room, but not the fight. I made sure she got the best oncologists, the most promising experimental treatments, the most attentive care. All anonymously funded, all carefully monitored from my office 6 floors above her room. My father never questioned how they were affording the expensive treatments on his construction company's dwindling profits. He was too proud to ask, too convinced of his own success to wonder why the bills never came. Another text buzzed through. "The funeral is tomorrow at 2 p.m. Security will be instructed not to let you in." I clicked my phone off and stood up, smoothing my white coat. The board meeting about cancer research funding wouldn't wait, even if my world was crumbling. "Dr. Wilson?" Janet appeared again. "Your brother Michael is here." Michael stepped into my office, looking uncomfortable in his construction company polo shirt. He was Dad's pride and joy now, the son who had stayed, who had chosen concrete and steel over medicine and healing. "Sarah," he shifted awkwardly. "Dad doesn't know I'm here. Come to officially uninvite me to Mom's funeral too?" He flinched. "It's not right what he's doing. Mom would have wanted you there. You're a doctor, for God's sake. You save lives. Not hers." The words tasted bitter. I couldn't save her. "Sarah." Michael looked around my office, taking in the medical degrees on the wall, the research awards, the framed article about my groundbreaking cancer treatment protocol. "There's something you should know. Before Mom. Before the end, she gave me this." He pulled an envelope from his pocket, wrinkled like he'd been carrying it for days, debating whether to deliver it. Inside was a letter written in my mother's shaky hand. "My dearest Sarah, if you're reading this, I'm gone. Your father doesn't know I'm writing this. He doesn't know a lot of things. Like how I've seen you watching over me from afar these past 3 years. How I knew it was you making sure I got every possible treatment, every chance at more time. The nurses talk, sweetheart. They're so proud of their brilliant chief of oncology, so grateful for the anonymous donations that help patients like me. They don't know I'm your mother, but I know you're my daughter. My beautiful, brilliant, compassionate daughter. I saw you yesterday standing at the nurse's station pretending to review charts while really watching me sleep. I wanted to call out to you to tell you to come in to hold my hand one last time. But your father's anger runs so deep and I was too weak to fight him anymore. I'm leaving you my mother's ring. The nurses will make sure you get it. Wear it tomorrow at the funeral. Stand proud in that white coat of yours. You might not build buildings like your father wanted, but you build something far more precious. Hope. I love you, my darling girl. I have always been so proud of you. Love, Mom. The paper trembled in my hands. She knew. Michael nodded. She knew everything. The anonymous donations, the way you made sure she got into every promising trial, how you'd review her charts after your shifts ended. Dad suspected sometimes, but his pride wouldn't let him admit that you were the one keeping her alive these past 3 years. I sank into my chair, memories washing over me. All the times I'd stood outside her room, pretending to be just another doctor doing rounds. All the nights I'd sat in my office, reviewing her test results, searching for any sign of improvement. All the money I'd poured into experimental treatments, hoping for a miracle. The ring. I looked up at Michael. Did the nurses? He pulled a small velvet box from his pocket. Inside was our grandmother's sapphire ring, the one Mom had always promised would be mine someday. Dr. Wilson? Janet's voice came through the intercom. The board is waiting. I slipped the ring onto my finger, its familiar blue stone catching the light. Tell Dad, I said to Michael, standing up, that Mom's medical bills have been paid in full. All $180,000 of them. If he wants to know how, he can ask the hospital's charitable foundation about their anonymous donor program. Michael's eyes widened. You paid? All this time. Every treatment. Every trial. Every chance to keep her with us a little longer. I straightened my white coat. Now excuse me. I have a board meeting about funding new cancer research. Some daughter of a construction company owner donated a significant amount in memory of her mother. As I walked toward the boardroom, my mother's ring caught the fluorescent lights, sending blue sparkles dancing across the hospital walls. Tomorrow I would face my father's rejection one last time. But today I had a hospital to run and lives to save. That's what builders do after all. We just build different kinds of foundations. The next day I stood outside Sterling Memorial Chapel in my white doctor's coat, my mother's sapphire ring glinting in the afternoon sun. 2 security guards blocked the entrance, clearly waiting for me. My father had chosen this venue because Mom had always loved its stained glass windows. What he didn't know was that I had performed life-saving surgery on the chapel owner's daughter last year. One phone call was all it took to ensure the guards would step aside when I arrived. Dr. Wilson, the head of security, nodded respectfully. Go right in. Inside, I could hear my father's voice arguing with someone. What do you mean the guards won't stop her? I paid for security. Mr. Wilson, the chapel owner's voice was firm. Dr. Wilson saved my Emily's life. She's welcome in my chapel anytime. I stepped through the doors just as my father turned around. He looked older than I remembered, grief and anger etching deep lines around his eyes. His face darkened when he saw my white coat. How dare you wear that here, he snarled. This is your mother's funeral, not one of your hospital photo ops. Mom loved seeing me in this coat, I replied calmly. She was proud of what it represented. Proud. He stepped closer, voice dropping to a harsh whisper. You abandoned your family legacy for that coat. Threw away generations of Wilson builders to play doctor with strangers. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. A text from Janet. Hospital financial office just called Mr. Wilson about the anonymous donations. Perfect timing. I smiled slightly. Speaking of abandonment, Dad, did you get an interesting call this morning? About Mom's medical bills. His face flushed. How did you? $180,000 in experimental treatments. 3 years of specialized care. Access to trials that had year-long waiting lists. Did you ever wonder how you could afford it all on a struggling construction company's income? The color drained from his face as realization dawned. You were the anonymous donor. Every penny. Every treatment. Every chance to keep her alive while you were too proud to let her own daughter treat her. Michael appeared at my father's elbow. Dad, people are starting to arrive. We're not done here, Dad growled but turned away to greet the funeral guests. I took my seat in the back row watching as people filed in. Construction company employees, family friends, relatives who had followed my father's lead in shunning me. All of them whispering when they saw me in my doctor's coat. The service began. I listened as speaker after speaker talked about Mom's kindness, her strength through the illness, her grace in facing death. None of them mentioned the anonymous donor who had given her 3 more years of life. None of them knew they were sitting a few feet away from the doctor who had orchestrated her care from afar. Then the hospital chaplain stepped up to speak. I had asked her to be here, knowing she was one of the few people who knew the whole story. Margaret Wilson was more than a patient, she began. She was a symbol of hope at Memorial Hospital. Her case inspired an anonymous donor to not only fund her treatment but to establish a new cancer research foundation in her name. My father's head snapped up. This foundation, the chaplain continued, funded by a doctor who wishes to remain anonymous, will help other families facing the same battle. A $5 million endowment, dedicated to ensuring that no parent has to wonder how they'll pay for their child's cancer treatment. Whispers rippled through the chapel. $5 million. More than Wilson Construction had made in its best year. Margaret knew about this foundation, the chaplain smiled gently. In fact, she helped design its mission in her final weeks. She asked that it focus especially on families divided by illness, on healing not just bodies but relationships broken by pride and misunderstanding. I felt tears sliding down my cheeks as I remembered my last conversation with Mom, conducted through the chaplain since I couldn't enter her room. She had been so excited about the foundation, so pleased that her illness would help others even after she was gone. And now, the chaplain pulled out an envelope. Margaret asked me to read this letter at her funeral. My father stood up. There must be some mistake. I approved all the speakers. Sit down, Robert, the chaplain said firmly. These are your wife's last words. I suggest you listen. She opened the envelope. My dearest family, if you're hearing this, I've finally lost my battle with cancer. But before you mourn, there's something you need to know. 3 years ago, when the doctors first told us the cancer was terminal, they gave me 6 months to live. But someone refused to accept that prognosis. Someone moved heaven and earth to get me into experimental trials. Someone spent hundreds of thousands of dollars to give me more time with my family. That someone was my daughter Sarah. Robert, my stubborn, proud husband, every treatment you thought you were affording on the construction company's income? That was your daughter's money. Every specialist who mysteriously had an opening for me? That was your daughter's influence as chief of oncology. I saw her, standing outside my room during her rounds, pretending to be just another doctor. Watching over me when you weren't there. Moving silently through the hospital in that white coat you despise so much, making sure I had the best of everything while taking no credit. You forced her to choose between her calling to heal and her family's approval. She chose healing, and then spent every day proving that choice didn't mean abandoning family. To my son Michael, thank you for being the bridge between your sister and our family, for seeing beyond pride to what really matters. And to my beloved Sarah, watching now from somewhere in this chapel in your white coat, you did not fail me. You gave me 3 more years with my family. You showed me what a daughter's love truly means. The foundation you're creating in my name? Make it about reconciliation as much as research. Help other families avoid our mistakes. Robert, look at your daughter. Really look at her. See the woman who built not with bricks and steel, but with hope and healing. The daughter who paid for my care when our company was failing. The doctor who saved countless lives while you were busy disowning her. It's time to build something new. Start with forgiveness. Love, Margaret. The chapel was silent except for muffled sobs. I looked down at my hands at the sapphire ring catching light from the stained glass windows. Dr. Wilson? I looked up. The hospital's chief of surgery was standing in the doorway. I'm sorry to interrupt, but there's been a major accident. We need you in the OR. I stood straightening my coat. This was who I was, who Mom had been so proud of me becoming. Sarah. My father's voice stopped me. He stood in the aisle, tears streaming down his face. The foundation, $5 million? A good builder always reinvests in the foundation, I said quietly. You taught me that. He took a step toward me, then another. I was wrong. About everything. I know. I checked my phone as it buzzed with details about the incoming trauma. But right now, someone else's mother needs me. Go, he whispered. Do what you were meant to do. I walked out of the chapel into the sunlight, my white coat billowing behind me. The sapphire ring caught the light one more time, a final wink from Mom, perhaps. 3 months later, I stood beside my father at the opening of the Margaret Wilson Center for Cancer Research and Family Healing at Memorial Hospital. He had sold Wilson Construction and donated the proceeds to add to my foundation's endowment. "I'm learning to build something new," he said as we cut the ribbon together. "Something your mother would have been proud of." The center's first patient was the daughter of a construction company owner who had disowned her for becoming a nurse. My father personally gave them a tour, showing them the plaque that told our family's story. Sometimes the strongest foundations are built not with concrete and steel, but with forgiveness and understanding. Mom taught us that in the end. And every day I wear her ring under my surgical gloves, building hope one patient at a time.